I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. So former New Jersey Governor Republican Chris Christie announced that he would be seeking the Republican nomination for president, and he came out swinging against Donald Trump and Donald Trump's family of crooks and grifters. And I mean swinging. In this first clip from Chris Christie's launch event, Chris Christie says that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner are some of the biggest grifters. They got $2 billion from the Saudis, and you think it's because Jared Kushner is some investment genius? No, it's a quid pro quo. Watch Chris Christie go after Donald Trump's son-in-law and daughter. Play this clip.
So let me tell you something, everybody. The grift from this family is breathtaking. It's breathtaking. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Kushner walk out of the White House and months later get $2 billion from the Saudis. $2 billion from the Saudis. You think it's because he's some kind of investing genius? Or do you think it's because he was sitting next to the President of the United States for 4 years doing favors for the Saudis? That's your money. That's your money he stole and gave it to his family. You know what that makes us? A banana republic. That's what it makes us. So, he may get 30% again. I'm not sure. Maybe he'll get more. Maybe he'll get less. But let me tell you what he'll know in 2024 that he had no idea of in 2016. He's in for a fight to get it.
In this clip, Chris Christie criticizes Donald Trump's record, leaving the country with the biggest deficit ever. Play this clip.
The reason this is going to be different this time, sir, is because at least one of us is going to call him on the fact that 8 years ago he stood on the stage in New Hampshire and said he was going to balance the budget in 4 years. And he left with the biggest deficit of any president in American history. He said he was going to eliminate the national debt in 8 years. He added $3 trillion to the national debt in 4 years.
In this next clip, Chris Christie slams Donald Trump for claiming that he would settle the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Play the clip.
And now I heard him say, if we made him president again, he would settle the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Did you hear that one? That's a beauty. That's really in a career of complete falsehoods. That makes the top 5. But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say Donald Trump could settle it in 24 hours. Let me tell you how he would. He'd give Ukraine to Russia. And he said it. He said it on television. He said it at CNN, and he said, look, Russia's going to wind up with Ukraine anyway, so what's the difference? That's how he'd settle it in 24 hours. He'd call Zelensky and say, hey, guess what? Time to raise the Russian flag up on the pole. We're out of here.
In this next clip, Chris Christie says to the audience, you really think that Donald Trump wants to be your retribution? No, he's looking for his own retribution. Play the clip.
If you think for 1 minute, when he says, I am your retribution, if you think he wants to be your retribution, forget it. He's going to be retribution for one person and one person only, himself. And all the things he's angry about. And all the ways he thinks he got snookered. Well, if that's the kind of president you want, let me tell you, no one can compete with him. He's the runaway winner. But if you want somebody who's actually going to fight for you, I would suggest to you that's not the right choice.
And finally, in this clip, Chris Christie mocks Donald Trump for Trump saying he never makes a mistake and that he's so perfect. Play this clip.
Beware of the leader in this country who you have handed leadership to, who has never made a mistake, who has never done anything wrong, who when something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault, and who has never lost. I've lost. You people did that to me in 2016.
After launching his campaign for the Republican nomination for president, Chris Christie talked about his campaign on ABC with George Stephanopoulos. And Chris Christie said, look, I think there's only one lane for the Republican nomination, and that is to confront Donald Trump head on. Play this clip.
George, I think there is only one lane to the Republican nomination for president, and Donald Trump's at the head of it, and you need to go right through him and make the case against him. And that's what I intend to do, while also making the case for leadership that doesn't turn its back on Ukraine. For leadership that says, yes, we have to be fiscally responsible again, for leadership that says we should have educational freedom, and that when you make promises as a presidential candidate, you should keep them. Donald Trump promised to replace and repeal Obamacare. He didn't do it. Donald Trump promised to build a wall across the border of Mexico and have Mexico pay for it. He didn't do it. He promised to balance the budget in 4 years. He left with the largest deficit of any president in history, and he promised to retire our national debt in 8 years, and he added trillions to it. That's broken promises like that, George, aren't acceptable anymore to the American people. The stakes are too high. That's the case you need to make, and if you make it effectively, I think we will be the nominee.
So what was Donald Trump's response? Donald Trump posted a video on his social media platform of Chris Christie eating food, because Donald Trump mocks Chris Christie for being obese. Play this clip.
And it was about our country and its future. And I wondered what our choice was going to be. Were we going to be small, or were we going to be big?
And then Donald Trump posted, how many times did Chris Christie use the word small? Does he have a psychological problem with size? Actually, his speech was small and not very good. It rambled all over the place, and nobody had a clue of what he was talking about. Hard to watch, boring, but that's what you get from a failed governor, New Jersey, who left office with a 7% approval rating and then got run out of New Hampshire. This time it won't be any different. And asked to respond to Donald Trump calling him fat, Chris Christie said the following, quote, "What a child he is. He's a baby. If we had a child that acted like that, we'd send him to his room, not the White House," he told Jake Tapper, saying again that Trump is a, quote, spoiled baby. Want to say this, though, about Chris Christie. Chris Christie aided and abetted that spoiled baby, essentially until the very end. And by the way, Donald Trump almost murdered Chris Christie when Donald Trump lied about not having COVID and then having Chris Christie help him in his debate prep. Chris Christie got very, very sick and almost died as a result of Donald Trump knowingly covering up the fact that he had COVID right before the presidential debates in 2020. And Chris Christie enabled it, supported Donald Trump's destruction of our democracy. So while I think it is enjoyable to watch Chris Christie go after Donald Trump and to call Donald Trump out like that, it would have been the right thing to do, though, in real time when Chris Christie was there, and to call it out and not wait after the fact. But nonetheless, to have this taking place within the Republican primary and to confront Donald Trump like that, you know, is something that I think will be something we should all be looking out for. And of course, that's as we all look out for the imminent indictments by Special Counsel Jack Smith against Donald Trump, and the recent reporting as well that Mark Meadows has agreed to plead guilty to a number of criminal counts in exchange for a limited immunity deal to testify against Donald Trump. Stay tuned, folks. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. Help us get to 1.5 million subscribers. Check us out. Patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And check us out wherever you get audio podcasts. Subscribe to the MeidasTouch podcast. Have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.